Hi, everybody. This week we're going to talk about smart building and smart coastline management. And I wanted to just today focus on natural ways of managing and sustaining and fortifying coastlines. And the overarching reason for this is that these strategies are so much cheaper than engineering that we talked about last week. And we talk about some smart engineering projects this week as well. It is far less expensive to maintain and sustain the natural environment than it is to build walls and floodgates and barriers and levees and pumping stations and all of the other hard structures that we have talked about and will talk about. So the first natural environment, which is extremely successful in protecting coastlines, are salt marshes. And this slide here shows a typical salt marsh. You can see all this beautiful grass and these little rivers that run through it. And these naturally growing systems are very extensive. But the problem is that humans have degraded them through commercial activities. For example, along the Gulf Coast, natural gas and oil exploration has ruined mile upon mile of salt marsh. And this has led to much more coastal erosion and damage during major storms. You can just see this mile upon mile would be very effective at stopping wave energy and storm surge from reaching the developed part of the coast, sort of in the background of this picture. You can just see how even though this grass isn't very high and even though grass isn't very strong, it's just the sheer expanse of this and the way that it holds the sediment down on the bottom of the bottom of the coastal zone, the bottom of the ocean. This is a really effective way of protecting the coastline because this naturally growing system is so expansive. All right, then another one, which you can see here, are oyster reefs. And these are naturally growing, but in some cases, I'll post a video, they can be human-made and human developed, but they can be naturally growing. And you can see this is like a concrete barrier because these oysters grow one on top of the other and they cement themselves to each other. So this is an oyster reef here, and you can just see how mile upon mile upon mile upon mile of oyster reef could be as effective, if maybe not more effective, than some sort of a hard structure like a seawall or something, and protecting the coastline from storm damage and wave energy. So there are places like New York Harbor and other places up and down the East Coast, Florida, where conservation groups are restoring oyster reefs to their previous state before commercial fisheries and other environmental hazards have diminished their extent. So oyster reefs are a very inexpensive way of fortifying coastline. And the third one are mangroves. And mangroves, if those of you who've been to Florida have seen extensive mangroves, and you can just see this picture here, these massive roots in these large trees. And again, the expanses of these systems are extremely effective at protecting coastlines from storms. And so mangroves, again, have been under threat in many parts of the US and the Caribbean and other tropical areas. But again, environmental groups are fortifying and sustaining and protecting these mangrove systems so that they can grow back and so that they can stay healthy and protect the coastline. So these are very effective ways: oyster reefs, salt marshes, and mangroves. And in tropical areas, coral reefs are very effective at protecting coastlines. I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, so that's the natural side of smart building, smart conservation, and it is becoming a large part of the toolkit in protecting the coastline.